Well, shooters and reloaders, Fortune Cookie 45 LC coming to you from the hot lead zone. And here again is our new Lee auto drum powder measure mounted on a single stage press. Happens to be the Lee custom cast press. And been getting a lot of questions and comments about this measure, such as Arrow J. Arrow J asked for more testing to compare this measure with the standard RCBS Uniflow, and also how does this measure work with the extruded stick type powders, this kind of thing. So let's go ahead and do some of that testing. So first, let's go ahead and take off this little knob here on the other side of the measure, and when we unscrew that knob, the drum comes out. Now this drum is made of nylon, and some of you have wondered if there's any problem with the steel screws stripping out the nylon on the drum. Well, here we go. Will this screw strip out that nylon part there? And it very well may happen. But so far it's been working real well. This is the pistol drum. Let's take this off and put in the rifle drum, which is a lot deeper in here. It can do 80 grain charges. So this goes into the center of the gear there. Only fits one way. And we'll put that knob back on the other side. They do say don't over tighten it, because they're aware of that strip out problem too. So there it is, just snug. And the bevel here on the nylon works inside that nice polished interior metal, so that it actually has a little bit of a ridge here, so that it just fits right into that, like so. We'll go ahead and adjust this, because today we're going to use a 30-30. This is a 30-30 powder through die, and we're going to use a 30-30 case to throw the charges, and we're going to do 48-31 powder, and that is one of the extruded stick type powders that doesn't meter very well. Let's see how this works. Well, I only had a ½ pound left, and it filled that container up because it's a ½ pound container. So the hopper is full of powder. Let's go ahead and rotate it to the counterclockwise position, which is the open position. So now that what has happened now is the powder's gone and filled in the measuring chamber here. Now we should mention that 48-31 surplus 20mm cannon powder is not a good powder for loading 30-30 Winchester, and it's a little bit too slow. But we're going to use it to test, so the powder charges we're about to throw are not really useful for 30-30 Winchester. Now you'll notice that I took the disconnector out of the press, and the reason being that I don't need to have to activate the disconnector every time I run a case, because I'll put the case into the press like this, and then we'll go ahead and run the case into the die, activate the powder measure, and give it a little bit of time for the larger charge to drop through, and then I'm gonna take the case right out, so that now this is a charged case. Well, I'm not gonna double charge it, because as soon as I run it, I'm gonna take the case out of the press, and then it's either gonna go in the loading block, or I'm gonna go ahead and put a bullet on top of it. Now what Peter Alex Ben suggests is that instead of just going ahead and throwing one charge and measuring 50 of those, that we go ahead and do a multiple charge and average it out. So he's saying throw 5 charges and get the average. So there's one, into the pan it goes. Here's 2, Now, interesting, you can hear the powder going through because we're using the riser. So the powder actually makes noise. It makes noise also in the filling. There's 2. 3. 4. Don't know if you can hear that or not. But if I were going ahead and really loading charges, it'd be nice to hear that powder going through. There's 5. We're going to do Peter Alex Ben one more, and that is we're going to go 10, because it's easier to average 10 than it is to average 5. Now, the lead instructions say to give it a little bit of time for the powder to run through, and we did that. There is what 10 charges looks like. Now I'm going to weigh this in the Hornady powder dispenser scale. Came to 347.1 grains. Now I don't know if you can see that or not, but this is my Hornady automatic powder dispenser being used as a scale, electronic scale, and I threw an extra charge and it came out at 34.7, which is what we're trying to throw. 34.7 grain charge. And all the time we used this, it went back to 0.0 before we started taking a weight. So this scale always returned to 0. So shooters and reloaders, what we're trying to do is throw a single charge of 34.7 grains. Well, we took 10 of those charges and weighed it, and we did that 5 times. So we got 348.4, that's 10 charges. 346.2, that's 10 charges. 347.1, that's 10 charges. 346.0 and 347.7. Well, guess what? When we averaged all those out, it came to 347.0. Divide that by 10, and we're getting 34.7 grains per charge, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, this is interesting that we're getting that kind of accuracy. So then we have to ask ourselves, what about the individual charges? What are they coming out as? So here's what we did. We measured 10 individual charges, and this is what we got. So here are the 10 individual charges. I'm not going to read them off to you. You can see what they are for yourself. The important thing is it came out to 34.71 grains average per charge for the 10 charges. And again, we're trying to get 34.7. That's not bad. And of the 10, we got 3 of them bullseyed at 34.7, and most of the others, except for a couple, are within 1/10 of a grain of that. That's pretty good performance. Plus, now as you know, the extruded stick powders give us that binding that we hate when we're doing the measuring of those stick powders. And I want you to know that with this Lee auto drum powder measure, there was never a throw that had that binding. All were smooth. So for Arrow J now, let's repeat that whole test using the RCBS Uniflow powder measure. Now, this is my trusty powder measure that I've been using for the last 38 years or so. We're kind of sticking our neck out on a limb now. But let's go ahead now and cut off the powder flow on the Lee. And then we'll just lift this out. Look at that. No powder spill. Now I'll just take this and pour it into the RCBS Uniflow. Get my fingers up here. How do you like that? Didn't spill a grain. And look, that hopper, get that in focus for you. Amazingly, that Lee hopper just about filled the RCBS hopper. So, sure, I wanted a bigger hopper, but the RCBS really isn't that much bigger. Well, let's go ahead and run the test. So we've set the RCBS Uniflow to throw a 34.2 grain charge. Well, let's go ahead now and dispense 10 charges into this pan. And then we'll average the 10 and then do that repeatedly. Here we go. Here's one. Wow, that binded a lot. There's one. There's two. There's three. Oh, that binded a lot. There's four. 5. 6, that didn't bind at all. 7. 8. 9. 10. Okay, let's go ahead and weigh that 10. 34.19 or 341.9. That's pretty good. So 10 charges should give us 342 grains. That first 10 threw 341.9. That's only a tenth of a grain off of our target. That's pretty good. Let's do another 10. There's one. There's two. There's three. There's four. There's 5. There's 6. 7. I don't know about you, but that's just ridiculous. We can't do this test. Let's try again. Try and do this consistently every time. Well, there's powder bridging there. Let's do that again. So, arrow J, we're about to do the individual charge test. 10 individual charges. Let's go ahead. Alright, that one really jammed, so we're not going to use that one. Well, that one really jammed. In fact, that one stuck in there. That one bridged in there. Let's do another one. That one bridged in there because that's not a full powder charge. Alright, there's one. And that weighs at 34.1. Not bad, we want 34.2, so that's within a tenth. Let's log that. So here's charge number 2. We'll just reject that one. That one binded a little bit. $33.8. Now we'll check the 0 on the scale. And there it is, 0, 0, with the pan on there, let's go ahead and throw another charge. Now that was a good one. A little bit of bridging. .2. That's a bullseye. Let's do another one. That one didn't jam at all. .1. That's a good one. Uh-oh, that one didn't jam at all, and we only got a 33.7. And that pan went right back on the Hornady dispenser scale, and it's zeroing at 0.0. So the scale is being very fair here, and that's a good testimony to the Hornady automatic powder dispenser scale. Well, shooters and reloaders, the RCBS Uniflow powder measure jammed so many times with that 4831 extruded stick powder that I didn't feel like doing a full test. So here are the 10 charge weights. We're trying to get 342 grains. Well, the first 10 charge weight came out 341.9. That's pretty impressive because that's only 1/10 off the 342, right? But the next one was 340.9, next one was 341. And that averaged out at 34.09 grains per charge. And we wanted 34.2. So that's off a little bit. Then I did 5 individual charges, and the bad news there was the individual charges averaged at 33.9 grains. We wanted 34.2. So that's pretty far off our 34.2. We adjusted the measure to give us 34.2 and only got one that was right at 34.2, but a lot of variation there. Came out averaging 33.9. Well, if we wanted to throw a 33.9 charge, for instance, then we would have had the weights off by 34.2 when we want 33.9. There's 34.1 and 33.8 is only a tenth off, but then the 34.1 is off by 0.2, and then here's one at 33.7 is off by 0.2. So that's not too impressive. And all the jamming that happened, and also the powder bridging that happened, that wasn't impressive either. There's not a shooter or reloader out there that's watching this video that would accept having all that jamming and that powder bridging with this measure, so that we'd almost have to weigh every single charge to have any kind of confidence throwing those. So most of the time we don't use this measure for the extruded stick powders because we don't have any confidence in it. Now this measure performs well with other powders though. Now I'm sure you all saw how smoothly the Lee Auto Drum operated with that 4831 extruded stick powder. That was actually very impressive. And each throw gives us a lot of confidence, and it's borne out by the weighing test. So that's a good testament for the goodness of this powder measure. I'm getting more impressed by this thing all the time. Now you'll also notice that I have to take the whole measure off the stand in order to dump the powder back into the can. Let's go ahead and do that. Plus, shooters and reloaders out there, one thing I didn't mention is when I took the drum out and switched to the rifle, the inside of this was clean. And we had used it for Winchester 296 powder in the last video. And then, for those of you who are wondering if there was a lot of powder collected inside here, there wasn't any. So now I've emptied it out of the 4831 and there's no problem there either.